Welcome to the SBS Digital Learning Hour, brought to you by the Digital Learning and Assessment Department. We're coming to you today from a conference room in Central Office, bringing you the latest news in Springfield Public Schools in regards to technology, along with inspiring interviews from teachers who are using technology in the classroom. Thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Mike Thomas, the Bearded Tech Ed Guy. You can find me out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Bearded Tech Ed, or my website, Bearded Tech Ed Guy. And if you are a Springfield teacher specifically, you can also find all the same information out on Yammer, looking for my lovely emoji, or you could find us out on the We Learn page in the MySPS. So just a couple of quick announcements for all of you Springfield teachers out there. You might have started to see an update message about your OneDrive, and what the Tech Ops department is doing is making sure that everything is synced to your OneDrive, including your desktop and your documents folders. Don't worry, it's not a phishing thing. If you're looking for more information on this, or if you're looking to be kept up to date with any announcements like it, if you go out to the MySPS OITA page, you will find this information and so much more. In case you missed the latest blog post, it's all about my time at MassQ. For those of you that don't know, MassQ is a Massachusetts conference dedicated to technology and education. So this past week, I got to go and be a presenter at this conference. I got to talk about exactly what we do here with the blog and the podcast. So I went into a little detail in the blog post. I also posted a visual of the presentation. I tried to record the audio, but honestly, I did not feel like carrying around a microphone, and I didn't have a wireless mic set up for me. So the audio didn't come out great, so that's why we're not using it this week. But I did post what I talked about, kind of the spirit behind what we do. I also included a couple of wakelets full of information for the blog post. So you can go ahead and check that out. If you missed last week's blog post because I didn't mention it on the podcast, we also have a statistics lesson using the SAMR model and how you can use one thing and do many different ways of teaching with technology. Those are a couple of the latest blog posts. You can find them on MySPS on the We Learn page, or you can find them on my blog, beardedtechedguy.com. That's it for this week. Coming up next is our interview of the week. For this week's interview of the week, I met with an engineering teacher over at the High School of Science and Technology, Joshua Copen. We sat down and we talked about all things that he's doing in the classroom and things that he's looking forward to. And I hope you get a lot out of this interview. I know I learned quite a bit too, especially because I never taught engineering or high school. So take a listen.
My name is Joshua Copen. I've been teaching in Springfield for 11 years. I taught out of district for an additional 2 years. I've started at Putnam, and I have taught at Central, and now here at SciTech.
So even out of district, were you also high school teaching?
I was teaching high school at that time, yes.
And what subjects have we been teaching?
And I have been teaching all science. I started out with earth science and moved on to physics, and I'm now currently teaching engineering.
So out of those three, do you have a preference of what you like the most? Or is
engineering
it kind of like
by far. Engineering is what I think the most creative, which I enjoy. Implementing the engineering by design process has really been my calling. I have an art background, and that combined with my science background gives the perfect outlet for me to teach.
And I'm sure it really allows the students to even see how engineering and art do actually go together.
It's STEAM all the way. It's fantastic.
So, before we jump into what you're doing now, let's talk about what you did early on in your teaching. What kind of technology were you able to integrate into your class?
And some of the earliest memories of technology that I would incorporate was the simulations that we would do for my physics classes called PhET physics. Mm-hmm. And so it'd be a simulation or a model of either a circuit board that students could manipulate, or there was this thing called the Energy Skate Park where students could build their own skateboard ramp, and they could see how energy would change as a skateboarder, like a video game, would go down the ramp. and change. So those are fun ways that students became interested in both the subject through the use of technology earlier on.
So it sounds like PhET has been around for a while. I just learned about it a couple of years ago myself. So
yeah,
it's pretty awesome that you were using it even back then.
And the applications are still the same. They've carried over. There were actually a couple programs that we'd use for projectiles that still require DOS software, but it's harder to use those programs because there's no more Windows 98.
That is true. In regards to like using PhET, how did you feel like that versus like the actual hands-on of doing those same type of projects? Were you able to do those hands-on at all, or was it more?
Oh, definitely. The thing is that physics is very messy, and it's hard to get the results that you're looking for in the real world. There's always so much noise, so to say, that it's really hard to get the precision where it will click for the student. But if you can scaffold the lesson with a simulation, then it can make a lot more sense for the student.
So that is in physics. Did you do anything for earth science or?
Yeah, there were a few for earth science as well. One thing was if you generate there was this earthquake simulation that you could use, or something that could mimic or make a model of tectonic plates and for seafloor spreading and mid-ridge spreading and things like that, just for students to see.
Awesome. So let's jump ahead now. What are some things that you're doing in your class with technology?
Well, I really like having a single go-to platform, that being Unified Classroom. The day after Unified Classroom was unveiled to teachers, we were using it in our classroom that next day, and it offers so many different ways to disseminate information and target learning that I feel like it's well worth the investment that needs to be made, because it isn't the most user-friendly yet anyways. That has been helpful. Also, since I'm teaching engineering, there's a lot of intro CAD programs that I'm using. One being Google SketchUp, which is very user-friendly and fun for students because it allows them to build 3D models in a two-dimensional virtual space. And another, the one that we're using right now, is called West Point Bridge Builder, which is actually a contest. It was developed by engineers at West Point for military applications. And what it allows a student to do is to build a bridge that can withstand structural forces, but also keep in mind trade-offs. So if you have to build a stronger bridge, it's going to be more expensive material. So what trade-offs can be made so the bridge can still withstand the structural forces but not be as expensive?
Wow, that's a lot of great tools it sounds like you're able to use in the classroom. From Unified Classroom, which, as anyone knows, anytime you get new software, it's always a learning curve. And
yes.
To the West Point simulation. Now, I know there's 3D printers in some of these high schools. Does SciTech have one?
Yep. Yeah, we actually do have 3D printers, but in my classroom, there's 2 3D printers, and the other engineering teacher also has a 3D printer, which we run from time to time.
Nice. So where I was going with that is with the West Point project, like once students have built in the program, like what they were thinking, do you guys ever actually send it to the printer to
Not with
try
West
to build
Point.
it or?
Yeah. With we use Tinkercad for that. So
Okay.
We'll do simpler objects. Unfortunately, the 3D printers are a little feisty. So doing something as complicated as a bridge might lead to more frustration. But I have used them in the past to design simpler objects such as rocket fins or nose cones and things of that nature for when we study ballistics.
Wow. So I know, because I've only ever taught 5th grade. So like all the things you're talking about, I don't remember in school from when I was in school. It sounds like this. How are the students reacting to all of this, like the integration of technology to the actual physical science of it?
Pretty warmly. It seems like every year they get a little more technical savvy, so the actual technology is not a hindrance and it's more of a help, which is nice. Mm-hmm. And as long as it's a platform that they feel comfortable with, they typically tend to run with it, and they love all the hands-on stuff that we're doing. So as long as the technological stuff is a crutch to the hands-on learning, and not the other way around. The students are really happy with how I'm using the technology in the class.
Nice. So I know with robotics, there's different like competitions, and I know engineering in life there's different engineering competitions. You were mentioning the West Point one, which is one that you guys do. Are there ones that the students participate in that are like statewide? Or
Yeah, last year, STIC has been doing a wonderful job, Springfield Technical Community College, and they have been offering a number of competitions that SciTech has actually done very well in. Last year, we participated in this contest called the Makeathon, which is where we're given an engineering challenge, and we have it meets for 2 days, 12 hours one day. And last year, we designed something that was affiliated with the medical field to assist people. What we actually made was a calendar pill holder that would illuminate and tell the patient what dosage and when they needed to take their dosage, all through technology and LEDs and things like that.
That's awesome. It's great that you guys are able to partner with STIC, because I know STIC is just literally down the road.
Yeah, they've been great.
Have you found it, in all your years of teaching, have you found it difficult to integrate like technology into your lessons? Because a lot of times when technology comes, it's new, and in some ways you have to also make sure you're teaching everything that you had been teaching prior.
I think if you're willing to take risks, it makes it a little easier. If you are expecting a certain outcome, it can be a little bit more difficult. So if you're willing to roll with the punches and be open to not failure, but to disappointment from time to time, and be able to work through some of those glitches and always have a backup plan in case things really start going south, I think that it can be overcome.
Are there things that you're looking forward to doing this year that are new that you haven't tried yet?
Yeah, there are. Let's see. I would like to use different technologies. I would really like to start exploring more electronics with Arduino, and there's so many different sensors that are out there now, and start doing more stuff with circuits, more complex circuits.
So you just mentioned something I never heard of before. Is it called Duino?
Yeah, it's called an Arduino, and what it is it's like a microprocessor. Okay. That is available to teachers available to students that can be easily manipulated to run different kinds of sensors or do more complex tasks than just a regular circuit.
Nice. That sounds like a lot of fun.
It is, but it is challenging because they do need to be coded and programmed by students, and there can be a pretty steep learning curve that comes with that.
So is that more block coding, or is it more the text-based
coding?
No,
it's all text-based coding, which can be frustrating to students. But
I'm pretty sure it's frustrating to anybody who does coding.
Yeah.
With using technology over the course of the years, how have you seen your students really grow in like their abilities? Because I know engineering is not necessarily a career everybody goes into. And I imagine you get a lot of students who take the class, and for them it's more like an intro to decide if they want to venture that way.
This is an excellent question, because I have really modified. As I become a more experienced engineering teacher, I realize what is more important is that I get students interested in engineering, i.e. that I get them to the table more so than to train them as engineers. And that makes the class much more dynamic and much more enjoyable to students. That's my number one goal as an educator.
So do you find that students that you have that have gone through like your class and other science classes, do they go on to school and actually like invest into engineering? Or
Yes. Last year we had one student who was accepted to Rensselaer. And he's studying electrical engineer, and we had another student who is going to UMass Lowell to study engineering as well. So we have had some moderate success.
Awesome, that's fantastic. In thinking about being in high school, What is some advice that you would give to teachers who have technology, but they're kind of nervous or afraid to use it in the classroom?
The best advice that I can give is that every day is a new day. No matter how bad yesterday went, you get a blank slate for the next day. So, and even if things go horribly wrong, there's still so many things that actually went well and made a difference within a child. So there's always good. There's always bad, but there's always good. And that's the balance that every teacher needs to come to acceptance with.
So earlier you mentioned that one of the things that you're using is Unified Classroom. Can you tell our listeners, like, in what ways Unified Classroom has helped with what you're teaching?
Organization and dissemination of information. I really like this new feature of Unified Classroom, where you can disseminate a document now, and you no longer even need to upload that document to a student's OneDrive. It will automatically be saved for you within the assignment itself, so students can always go to the assignment, open it up, and it will be there modified just the way they left it.
That is an awesome feature. So, all right, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I know we are in the middle of our school day. So the final question that I have is, every year new hires to the district have to go through training where they get a ton of information shared with them. What advice would you give them as being a teacher in Springfield for as long as you have been? Like, what advice would you give them, whether it is in regards to technology or just in general?
As I was saying before, there's always good. No matter how bad of a day a teacher might be having, there is always good that's taking place. So what I used to do, even in my most difficult days, is I always keep a journal. And for every day, I just write down one good thing and one bad thing that happened throughout the course of the day. And maybe bad, when I mean bad, I mean something that could use improvement. And so when I look back at that journal, I really see that even on my toughest days, there was still a lot of good, and I was making a difference in our community.
It's a fantastic place to leave it. Thank you again for your time. I know this is the middle of your day.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure.
Thank you again, Josh, for allowing me to come and sit down and talk with you. I know, like I said in the interview, I really have no idea when it comes to high school, and in particular engineering, because I never took that at my high school. It wasn't even offered. So it's really cool hearing about all the projects that you guys are doing and the different contests and things that hopefully can spur someone into thinking about a career in engineering. Thank you again for allowing me to spend some time talking with you and about the things you're doing in your classroom. As we begin to wrap up today, if you enjoyed this episode or you've enjoyed past episodes, I highly encourage you to go out and make sure that you subscribe and follow us. We are SPS Digital Learning Hour, and you can find us on any podcasting platform. Also, on those platforms, it would be super awesome if you guys could leave us a review. Let us know how we did. Contact us. Give us whatever information you want to share with us. If you know of teachers who would be great to interview, I would love to set those up. I send a very flowery message telling them how awesome they are, because quite frankly, they are. And everyone deserves to be heard, and everyone deserves the opportunity to share the things that they're doing in the classroom. It's again one of the reasons why we do this podcast, is so that teachers can hear what other teachers are doing. So to wrap up today, I'm Mike Thomas, the Bearded Tech Ed Guy, and this is the SPS Digital Learning Hour.